Joining us now is Melbourne East Liberal Party Branch President Edward Kroger. Edward Kroger, thank you for joining us. Look, Charlie Kirk was admired across generations, but he was a hugely influential figure for Gen Zs. And partly because of Charlie Kirk, we saw this significant swing to the right in the US election, with 47% of Gen Z voters supporting Donald Trump. But it wasn't just young people in America who absolutely loved Charlie. He was loved so much right here in Australia as well, and across the world. Can I get your reflections of Charlie Kirk?
Well, Gab, thank you so much for having me. You're perfectly right. He was an enormous figure among the young people. All you have to do is look at the statistics. In the last election, for instance, there was over a 40% swing among, in this instance, young men aged 19 to 29. They turned by 40% away from the Democrats to the Republicans. But firstly, may I just say, Gab, I mean, I'm lost for words, as we all are. It is unfathomable what happened, and it's so hard to even come up with some words to describe the magnitude of the tragedy. It was so callous, it was so wicked, so cowardly. I mean, here he was in front of children, effectively, teenagers, unarmed. I believe his family were even there. I mean, the radical left are a massive danger, are a massive threat, and we just pray for his family, and we love him forever.
Well said, Edward. I mean, watching that assassination, it was just pure evil, and then seeing parts of the left celebrate his death, it's, yeah, it makes me lost for words as well. But let's talk about how much we love Charlie. You know, he was such a passionate guy. You know, how was he able to connect with young people in a way like no one else could?
Indeed. Well, you make a great point, Gab. He really did connect with the young people better than anybody. I think the president said it. He just had a way with the young people. And coming back to what I first said, indeed, although young men particularly were massive fans of Charlie Kirk, his Turning Point institution with millions of members, there was an extraordinary amount of gender parity there. Young, ambitious people, women and men. And you ask why? What was it about him? And I've been reflecting on this. I really think that when Charlie Kirk spoke, people listened to him and they believed in what he said. Of course, not every single word that ever came out of his mouth was perfect or something to, you know, everything to celebrate. But the vast majority of what he said was so true. He had common sense conservatism. And as I say, I think when people listened to him, they said, this man is telling the truth. I believe him, and I'm going to listen to what he says. And as I said, his impact, his influence is just borne out by the statistics. I mean, he had billions of views across multiple different social media platforms, across TikTok, for instance, and YouTube. I mean, this man was extraordinary. He was a tour de force. And if there are older people perhaps watching who don't have TikTok, I mean, I don't even have it, but perhaps if you haven't seen too much of him, let me just tell you that every young person knew him around the world. And they listened to him even for a little bit, and some listened to him every day. So it's just an extraordinary, terrible tragedy, and we feel for him and his family.
Oh, we do.
His movement will live on, however.
Absolutely. His movement will live on. And you mentioned his exceptional debating skills there. Here are some of his best moments.
So I do not have hate for a group. I do not have hate for a people. I have hate just
so I can get it on my camera. So Instagram,
don't worry, we got plenty of cameras, but yeah.
But yes, so you do not hate the LGBT community, and Turning Point is not against LGBT.
No, how could I hate that which I have a heart for?
Thank you.
And I might not agree for some of the lifestyle choices that some people make. But of course not.
And Edward, he really advocated for a return to common sense and conservative values. I mean, and we're seeing that shift take place in America. Do you think the same thing can be said about young people here in Australia? Do you think really because of Charlie Kirk, people might actually go back to common sense and then really adopting conservative values?
I think they will, and they are. I mean, about Charlie Kirk, there were two main things that I picked up and that millions of his fans did. Two central areas. The first was his patriotism. At every turn, he uplifted his country. He spoke good of his country. He believed in the past, the present, of course, under the president, and its future. He never spoke bad about the country. And if ever he did, it was only very temporarily, only so as to correct. And as you say about personal responsibility, I mean, this was not a man who went around just telling everybody what they wanted to hear. This is what I mean. He spoke and people believed in him. And of course, the three main things that he would always tell at every turn, at every speech he would give his young people advice. And it was this: get married, have kids, and go to church. I mean, what sort of... Some people on the left, of course, perhaps we'll get to it, it is the most abhorrent thing, even talking down on it. But who could quarrel with those ideals?
Well, it's interesting. I think we're going to be seeing a lot more people getting married and having babies and even going to church. And we're already seeing that this weekend. I mean, churches were packed. We're seeing people go out and buy the Bible for the very first time. Bible is actually trending on plenty of social media platforms. Do you think we're also going to see this kind of return to the Christian faith because of Charlie?
I think, Gab, we are seeing it. And I think one thing that perhaps hasn't been emphasised enough about Charlie Kirk, which is his enormous influence in the present revival of faith, Christianity in particular. And I think this has come about because he wasn't remotely ashamed of his faith in Jesus Christ. He was most proud of it. And he would say it, as I say, in every speech. I mean, just some quotes, we've watched some video of him. But he would give out speeches and he would say, I've flown on Air Force One a dozen times. I'm nearly best friends with the president. I live in a massive mansion. I have everything going for me. But what really matters, he said, is one's relationship with the divine, family, and the truth. And so he was, in a way, a godly man, a very God-fearing man. And as I said before, there is a massive uprising in Christian faith, a revival of it. And just to emphasise once more, I do not think he has been given the credit for this because he was so open, so public, and he was so learned in the scriptures. He would quote dozens of passages off the top of his head. He studied it so much, so deeply. And so I say again, he was a really godly man, and there is a revival. And people are clinging to faith now in these turbulent and tumultuous times. Yeah,
we're seeing that. No, I loved watching him and the way he could recite the Bible. It was incredible. Finally, before I let you go, Edward Kroger, I read over the weekend there are rumours you will be making a run for Parliament. Are they true?
Well, Gab, I am most honoured and feel very privileged to even be spoken of and thought of in this context. In any parliament of this country. I am, however, most devoted to presently the study of the law. I'm in my final year and I intend fully to practice law. What I will say, however, is that people are crying out for reform and for a change. We've had this atrocious government. I mean, these people can't do a single thing right. You look, crime is a disaster. They've totally lost control. Their solution is, let's spend a couple of $1 million buying back the machetes. I mean, why don't we just outlaw the machetes and then say, hey, if you don't give them back, we're going to punish you? Why do we have to reward people? The housing crisis. I mean, you look at the approvals. They take like a year, 2 years to approve. Why don't we do it in a week's time? That's what Donald Trump's been doing recently. There are so many things that this government is doing terribly. I think we'd be much better off if they just sat there and did nothing, because all they're doing is just hurting us.
Oh, look, I agree with you. The machete bins are just such a joke. Edward Kroger, we have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Gab.